Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he tightened the last bolt on the atmospheric processor. The mining station on Kepler 442b had been his home for 3 years now, and he'd grown used to the constant hum of machinery and the purple-tinged sky visible through the reinforced windows. As the chief engineer for Terran Mining Consortium, he'd fixed everything from water recyclers to fusion reactors, but nothing had prepared him for what was about to happen. The proximity alarms began blaring at 0800 hours, jolting Marcus from his morning coffee. Red lights flashed throughout the station as automated voices announced an incoming vessel of unknown origin. Marcus rushed to the command center where Captain Rodriguez was already studying the sensor readings with a grim expression. "What are we looking at, Captain?" Marcus asked, his engineering mind immediately calculating what kind of ship could produce such massive energy signatures. "Something big, Chen. Really big. It's not responding to our hails, and it's headed straight for us," Rodriguez pointed at the holographic display showing a ship that dwarfed their mining station by a factor of 50. The alien vessel descended through Kepler 442b's atmosphere like a floating city. Its hull gleamed with an iridescent blue-green material that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Geometric patterns covered its surface, pulsing with soft light that reminded Marcus of neural networks. The ship was beautiful in a way that human engineering had never achieved, combining function with an aesthetic that spoke of a civilization far older than Earth's. As the massive craft settled into a stable orbit above the mining station, Marcus felt the familiar tingle of curiosity that had driven him to become an engineer. Every instinct told him to study this vessel, to understand how it worked, to learn from technology that could make humanity's greatest achievements look primitive. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," Communications Officer Patel announced. It's in perfect English." The main screen flickered to life and Marcus felt his jaw drop. The being on the screen was humanoid but clearly alien, standing at least 12 feet tall based on the proportions of the chamber behind her. Her skin had a subtle crystalline quality that caught the light, and her hair flowed like liquid silver. But what struck Marcus most were her eyes, deep purple orbs that seemed to hold the wisdom of millennia. "Greetings, inhabitants of this mining facility," the alien spoke, her voice carrying a musical quality that resonated through the command center. "I am Princess Zarathul of the Vorthak Empire. I come seeking the one among you who understands the manipulation of matter and energy, what you call an engineer." Captain Rodriguez stepped forward, trying to maintain his composure despite facing a being from an advanced alien civilization. "I'm Captain Rodriguez of the Terran Mining Consortium. May I ask why you seek our engineer?" Princess Zarathul's gaze seemed to pierce through the screen directly at Marcus, as if she could see him despite the communication being one way from their end. "My people have observed human ingenuity from afar. We have watched as your species creates solutions with limited resources, how you adapt and overcome challenges that would defeat others. I have need of such creativity." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Somehow this alien princess knew exactly who she was looking for, and her attention was focused squarely on him. He'd always prided himself on his problem-solving abilities, but the idea that an advanced alien civilization had been watching human engineers' work was both thrilling and terrifying. "Risu, ship's primary defense grid has encountered a unique malfunction," the princess continued. "Our technology is powerful but rigid in its design. We have protocols and procedures that have served us for thousands of years. But this problem requires thinking that exists outside our established parameters. It requires human adaptability." The captain glanced at Marcus, uncertainty clear in his expression. First contact with an alien species was supposed to involve diplomats and scientists, not a mining engineer on a remote planet. But here they were, and the princess seemed to have very specific intentions. "What exactly are you proposing?" Rodriguez asked carefully. Princess Zarathul smiled, and Marcus noticed that her teeth had the same crystalline quality as her skin. "I propose an exchange with your engineer. I require access to human genetic material to understand how your neural pathways create such flexible thinking patterns. In return, I will provide him with one of our personal defense shields, technology that could revolutionize human protection systems." The command center fell silent, except for the background hum of life support systems. Marcus felt every eye in the room turn toward him as the implications of the princess's offer sank in. She was asking for his DNA in exchange for alien technology that could benefit all of humanity. The shield technology alone could save millions of human lives, the princess added, as if reading their thoughts. Your species faces many dangers as you expand into the galaxy. My people have perfected personal protection that can deflect energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, and even environmental hazards that would normally require full environmental suits. Marcus stepped closer to the screen, his engineer's mind racing through possibilities. The chance to study alien technology, to understand how an advanced civilization approached problems of energy and matter manipulation, was the opportunity of a lifetime. But the request for genetic material raised obvious concerns about what the aliens truly wanted. Why specifically genetic material? Marcus asked, surprising himself by speaking directly to the alien princess. If you want to understand human thinking, wouldn't brain scans or neural mapping be more useful? Princess Zarathul's expression showed what might have been approval. An excellent question, Engineer Chen. Yes, I know your name and your reputation. Genetic material provides us with the fundamental blueprint that creates your unique neural architecture. We do not seek to clone or harm. We seek to understand the biological basis for human adaptability, so we might enhance our own problem-solving capabilities. The honesty in her response caught Marcus off guard. Most first contact scenarios in human fiction involved deception or hidden agendas, but the princess seemed remarkably straightforward about her intentions. Still, trusting an alien being with human genetic material carried risks that went far beyond personal concerns. I need time to consider this, Marcus said finally, and I'd need to understand more about this shield technology and what the genetic sampling would involve. Of course, Princess Zarathul replied. I will remain in orbit for 24 of your hours. Use this time to decide, Engineer Chen, but know that this opportunity will not come again. My people do not often seek cooperation with younger species, and I have convinced them to make this exception based on observations of human ingenuity. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Marcus stared at the blank screen, knowing that his decision would not only affect his own future but potentially the future of human space exploration and defense. The princess had offered him a choice that could change everything, if he was brave enough to take it. Marcus spent the next 6 hours poring over every scrap of data the mining station's sensors had collected about the alien vessel. The ship's energy patterns defied conventional understanding. Power flowed through the hull in ways that suggested the entire vessel was essentially one massive integrated circuit. The engineering implications made his head spin with possibilities. Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's xenobiologist, had been analyzing the transmission data since the princess's initial contact. She found Marcus in the engineering bay, surrounded by holographic displays showing energy flow patterns and structural analyses of the alien ship. Marcus, we need to talk, Sarah said, her expression serious. I've been running analysis on the alien's biometric data from the transmission. Her physiology is remarkable. Cellular structure suggests lifespans measured in millennia, enhanced strength that could easily be 10 times human normal, and neural complexity that makes our brains look like pocket calculators. Marcus looked up from the display showing what appeared to be a fusion reactor the size of a small building. Are you trying to talk me out of this, Sarah? Because if you are, you might want to see what their technology could teach us first. I'm not trying to talk you out of anything. I'm trying to make sure you understand what you're dealing with. Sarah pulled up her own holographic display showing cellular analysis. This isn't just advanced technology, Marcus. The princess herself is a living example of genetic engineering that's thousands of years beyond anything we've achieved. If she wants to study human DNA, she might learn things about us that we don't even know ourselves. The thought sent a chill through Marcus, but it also sparked his curiosity. If the Vorthak had achieved such biological perfection, what could they learn from supposedly primitive human genetics? There had to be something unique about human neural architecture that even an advanced civilization found valuable. Captain Rodriguez entered the engineering bay with a grim expression. Chen, I just got off a quantum entanglement communication with Earth Command. They're sending a diplomatic team, but it'll take them 6 months to get here. The decision is ours to make. What's Earth Command's recommendation? Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Officially, wait for the diplomats. Unofficially, The technology transfer could give humanity a significant advantage in space exploration and defense. The choice is yours, but they want you to know that whatever you decide, you have Earth's support. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. The princess had specifically requested him, not humanity's best diplomats or scientists. For some reason, an alien being advanced beyond human comprehension wanted to make a deal with a mining engineer on a remote planet. His communicator chimed with an incoming message. The holographic display showed Princess Zarathul in what appeared to be a private chamber aboard her vessel. The scale was even more impressive up close. The princess towered in a room that could have housed a terrestrial apartment building. Engineer Chen, I hope you have had time to consider my proposal. I thought you might benefit from seeing the shield technology in action before making your decision. The princess gestured, and a section of her chamber's wall became transparent, revealing space beyond. Marcus watched in amazement as she activated what appeared to be a simple bracelet on her wrist. A shimmering field of energy enveloped her entire body, fluctuating like liquid light but maintaining a perfect spherical shape around her form. Observe, Princess Zarathul said, and suddenly the chamber began depressurizing. Alarms that Marcus couldn't hear began flashing as the atmosphere vented into space, but the princess remained completely unaffected within her energy shield. The field maintained perfect pressure and atmosphere while filtering deadly radiation and maintaining comfortable temperature. The shield responds to the user's biological needs automatically, the princess explained as the chamber repressurized. It can deflect weapons fire, provide life support in any environment, and even enhance physical capabilities when necessary. For a species like yours expanding into hostile environments throughout the galaxy, such protection would be invaluable. Marcus felt his engineering mind racing through the implications. Personal force field technology could revolutionize everything, from space exploration to industrial safety. Workers could perform maintenance in any environment without bulky suits. Explorers could venture into atmospheres toxic to human life. The applications were limitless. I have a question, Marcus said. Why haven't your people shared this technology before? You clearly know about humanity and our expansion into space. Why contact us now? Princess Zarathul's expression became thoughtful, and Marcus caught a glimpse of something that might have been loneliness in her ancient eyes. My people believe in non-interference with developing species. We observe, we study, but we do not intervene. I have argued for cycles that this policy creates stagnation in both observer and observed. So this is against your people's wishes? Not against, but beyond their current understanding. I have been granted permission to conduct this exchange as an experiment in cooperative development. If successful, it may change how the Vorthak interact with younger species throughout the galaxy. The implication struck Marcus like a physical blow. This wasn't just about trading DNA for technology. He was potentially participating in a fundamental shift in how advanced alien civilizations dealt with emerging species like humanity. The weight of that responsibility was staggering. Dr. Kim spoke up from beside him. Princess, what safeguards can you offer regarding the genetic material? How do we know it won't be used for harmful purposes? Dr. Kim, your concerns are logical and appreciated. The genetic sampling requires only a small blood sample and cheek swab. Enough to analyze neural development patterns, but insufficient for cloning or biological warfare applications. The samples will be destroyed after analysis is complete, and all data will be shared with Engineer Chen, so he understands exactly what we learn. Marcus found himself impressed by the princess's transparency. Most human organizations wouldn't offer such open access to their research data, yet this alien being was willing to share everything they discovered about human genetics. There's something else, Princess Zarathul continued. The shield technology requires neural interface calibration specific to each user. Engineer Chen would need to spend time aboard my vessel, while the device is configured to his biological patterns. This would also provide him with the opportunity to study our engineering approaches firsthand. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. The chance to study alien engineering techniques from the inside was beyond anything he'd ever dreamed possible. But it also meant leaving the safety of the human mining station and trusting his life to beings he'd known for less than a day. How long would the calibration process take? Captain Rodriguez asked. Approximately 72 hours. During this time, Engineer Chen would be my guest and under my personal protection. He would have access to technical databases and observation opportunities that could advance human understanding of energy manipulation and materials science by centuries. Marcus looked around at his colleagues. Sarah with her scientific curiosity warring against natural caution, Rodriguez with his military training focused on potential risks, and the other station personnel watching with mixtures of excitement and fear. The decision was his to make, but the consequences would affect everyone he cared about. "I need to know one thing," Marcus said finally. "What happens if something goes wrong? If the calibration process fails? Or if there are complications with the genetic analysis?" Princess Zarathol's expression grew solemn. "I will not lie to you, Engineer Chen. Working with technology beyond your current understanding carries inherent risks. However, my personal honor and the future of Vorthek-human relations depend on your safety. I stake my position and my life on ensuring you return to your people safely and with the knowledge I have promised." The sincerity in her voice resonated through the communication link. Marcus realized that the alien princess was taking just as much risk as he was, perhaps more. If something went wrong, she would face consequences from her own people that could be far worse than anything he might experience. The 24-hour deadline was approaching, and Marcus knew that his decision would echo through human history for generations to come. Marcus made his decision at 600 hours, just 2 hours before Princess Zarathol's deadline. He'd spent the night reviewing technical specifications, consulting with Dr. Kim about the biological implications, and ultimately realizing that the opportunity was too significant to pass up. Humanity needed every advantage it could get in a galaxy full of unknown threats and wonders. The transport shuttle that detached from the alien vessel was unlike anything in human design philosophy. Where human ships prioritized function and efficiency, this craft seemed to blend seamlessly into space itself. Its hull shifted colors to match the surrounding starfield, and Marcus couldn't detect any obvious propulsion system, despite its smooth movement toward the mining station's docking bay. "Remember, you've got a full sensor suite in your suit," Captain Rodriguez said as he helped Marcus check his equipment one final time. "Whatever you see over there, we want to learn from it too." Dr. Kim handed Marcus a sealed sample case containing the genetic materials requested by the princess. "The samples are labeled and documented. I've included detailed notes about human neural development patterns that might help her understand what makes our thinking unique." Marcus took the case, feeling the weight of human scientific knowledge in his hands. Everything they'd learned about their own biology, their own potential, was being offered freely to an alien civilization in exchange for technology that could transform human capabilities. The alien shuttle docked with barely a whisper of mechanical contact. When the airlock cycled open, Marcus found himself face to face with 2 Vorthak escorts who stood nearly 10 feet tall. Their crystalline skin caught the light from the station corridor, creating patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living art. "Engineer Chen," the first escort spoke in perfect English. "I am Sub-Commander Theknal. Princess Zarathul has instructed us to ensure your comfort and safety during transport. Please follow us." The interior of the shuttle defied human understanding of spatial engineering. The passenger compartment seemed larger than the exterior dimensions should have allowed, with curved walls that displayed real-time images of the space around them. Marcus felt like he was flying through the vacuum in an invisible bubble, watching stars and nebulae drift past in perfect clarity. "The walls are actually transparent aluminum infused with quantum display matrices," Sub-Commander Theknal explained, noticing Marcus's fascination. "Princess Zarathul thought you would appreciate understanding the technology, rather than simply experiencing it." The main vessel loomed ahead of them, and Marcus felt his breath catch as he truly comprehended its scale. The ship was less a vessel than a mobile habitat, with sections that rotated independently and energy patterns that flowed like rivers of light through its hull. Docking bays large enough to accommodate Earth's largest space stations opened like flower petals to receive the shuttle. Inside the alien ship, Marcus found himself in an environment that challenged every assumption he'd held about spacecraft design. Corridors curved and branched like organic tunnels, with walls that provided both structural support and information display. The air itself seemed to shimmer with microscopic particles that adjusted lighting, temperature, and atmospheric composition automatically. Princess Zarathul met them in what she called the engineering nexus, a vast chamber where holographic displays showed real-time data from every system aboard the ship. Her presence was even more impressive in person. She moved with graceful efficiency despite her massive size, and her eyes held depths of knowledge that made Marcus feel like a child looking up at the stars. Engineer Chen, welcome aboard the Vorthmach. I trust the journey was educational. Her voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate in his bones. Incredible, Marcus replied honestly. The spatial engineering alone has given me a dozen new ideas for human habitat design. How do you achieve greater interior space than exterior dimensions would allow? Dimensional folding through controlled gravity manipulation, the princess replied with what might have been approval. Your species has theoretical understanding of such concepts but lacks the materials science to implement them. Perhaps that will change after our exchange. She led him deeper into the ship, past chambers filled with technologies that Marcus could barely comprehend. He saw what appeared to be living metal that responded to thought, energy cores that tapped directly into quantum fluctuations, and manufacturing systems that could apparently create complex devices from pure energy. This is the biointegration laboratory, Princess Zarathul announced as they entered a chamber dominated by sophisticated analysis equipment. Here we will examine your genetic samples and begin the shield calibration process. But first, I believe you have questions. Marcus did indeed have questions, hundreds of them, but one stood out above the rest. Why is human adaptability so valuable to your people? You've clearly achieved technological mastery that we can barely imagine. What could we possibly offer in civilization as advanced as yours? The princess gestured to a holographic display that showed comparative neural scans. One clearly Vorthak, the other representing baseline human brain patterns. Observe the differences, Engineer Chen. Vorthak neural pathways are highly efficient, optimized through millennia of genetic refinement. We process information quickly and accurately, following established patterns that have proven successful. The human brain scan looked chaotic by comparison, with irregular connections and seemingly random neural clusters. But as Marcus studied the patterns, he began to see something the princess wanted him to understand. Human brains are inefficient by our standards, Princess Zarathul continued, but that inefficiency creates something we have lost: the ability to make unexpected connections between unrelated concepts. Your neural chaos generates true innovation, solutions that exist outside established parameters. Marcus felt a surge of pride in his species. Humanity's greatest weakness, their tendency toward illogical thinking and emotional decision-making, was actually their greatest strength in the eyes of an advanced civilization. My people face a problem that our perfect logic cannot solve, the princess explained. Our ship's defense grids are failing throughout the Empire. The systems are too complex for traditional repair approaches, too integrated for conventional replacement. We need someone who can see solutions that don't exist in our technical manuals. The pieces of the puzzle began falling into place for Marcus. This wasn't just about scientific exchange. The Vorthak Empire was facing a crisis that threatened their technological superiority, and they needed human ingenuity to solve it. You want me to fix your defense systems, Marcus said. That's why you're really here. Eventually, yes. But first you must survive the shield integration process, and I must understand enough about human neural architecture to safely interface your consciousness with Vorthak technology. The genetic analysis will help ensure the shield doesn't damage your unique thought patterns. Princess Zarathul approached one of the analysis stations and gestured for Marcus to hand over the sample case. The process will take several hours. During this time, I invite you to explore our engineering databases and observe our construction techniques. Consider it partial payment for the assistance you will provide. Marcus handed over the genetic samples, knowing that he was crossing a line from which there might be no return. But as he looked around at technology that could revolutionize human civilization, he knew he'd made the right choice. The princess began the analysis procedure with equipment that seemed to function through pure thought rather than manual operation. Streams of data flowed through holographic displays as human DNA was decoded and compared against vast databases of galactic species. Fascinating, Princess Zarathul murmured as results began appearing. Human genetic diversity is extraordinary. Most species achieve stability through standardization. But your people maintain beneficial chaos even at the cellular level. No wonder your minds generate such unexpected solutions. Marcus watched the analysis with growing excitement. Not only was he learning about alien technology, but he was discovering things about his own species that human science hadn't yet uncovered. The exchange was already proving more valuable than he'd hoped. "Now for the truly interesting part," the princess said as she began preparing the shield calibration equipment. "We will see if human neural architecture can successfully interface with Vorthak personal defense technology. If successful, you will become the first being in galactic history to bridge the gap between our species' capabilities." Marcus looked at the alien device that would soon be integrated with his biological systems, knowing that he was about to become something unprecedented in the galaxy, a human enhanced with Vorthak technology. The implications were staggering, and he couldn't wait to discover what they would learn together. The shield integration process began at what Marcus estimated was midday ship time, though the alien vessel had no clear day-night cycle. Princess Zarathul had explained that the device needed to map his neural pathways, understand his biological rhythms, and create quantum entanglement links between his consciousness and the shield's defensive matrices. "The process will feel unusual," the princess warned as she activated the integration chamber. The shield technology interfaces directly with the user's nervous system to provide optimal protection. Your brain will need to learn to communicate with quantum field generators that operate outside normal space-time. Marcus lay on what appeared to be a crystalline platform that adjusted its shape to perfectly support his human physiology. Above him, arrays of energy projectors created patterns of light that seemed to peer directly into his thoughts. The sensation was indescribable, like having his mind gently probed by curious intelligence. "I'm detecting significant neural activity in regions associated with creative problem-solving," Princess Zarathul observed, studying holographic displays that showed Marcus's brain in real time. "Human consciousness appears to maintain multiple, parallel processing streams simultaneously. Remarkable." The shield device itself was smaller than Marcus had expected, a bracelet-like band that felt warm against his skin despite being made of materials that shouldn't exist according to human physics. As the integration process continued, he began to feel subtle changes in his perception. Colors seemed more vivid, sounds carried additional harmonics, and he could sense electromagnetic fields from the ship's systems. "The enhancement effect is stronger than anticipated," the princess noted with what sounded like excitement. "The shield is not merely protecting you, it's amplifying your sensory capabilities and processing speed. Human neural plasticity is allowing adaptation that would take our people years to achieve." Marcus found that he could sense the ship around him in ways that defied explanation. He felt the flow of power through the hull, the gravitational fields that maintained artificial gravity, and even the quantum fluctuations that enabled faster-than-light communication. It was as if the shield had made him part of the ship's nervous system. "This is incredible," Marcus said, his voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. "I can feel the entire vessel like it's an extension of my own body." "Is this normal?" "Nothing about this process is normal," Princess Zarathul replied. "Human neural architecture is proving far more adaptable than our models predicted. You're achieving integration levels that typically require centuries of gradual enhancement among my people." Hours passed as the calibration continued. Marcus found himself understanding Vorthak engineering principles through direct neural interface rather than traditional learning. The ship's construction made perfect sense now. Each component was designed to work in harmony with consciousness itself, creating a symbiotic relationship between technology and living thought. "I want to show you something," the princess said as the integration process neared completion, "something that may help you understand why this exchange is so important to my people." The chamber around them shifted, walls becoming transparent to reveal space beyond. But this wasn't the view from their current location. Somehow the princess was showing him other parts of the galaxy, other Vorthak vessels spread across dozens of star systems. Marcus gasped as he saw the scope of the problem Princess Zarathul had described. Vorthak ships throughout their empire were showing signs of systematic failure. Defense grids flickered and died, leaving massive vessels vulnerable to attack. Some ships had been abandoned entirely, their crews evacuated to emergency facilities. "Our civilization spans 3,000 star systems," the princess explained. "For 50,000 years, our technology has been perfect, predictable, reliable. But perfection has a cost. We lost the ability to adapt when faced with truly unprecedented problems. Marcus studied the failing ships through his enhanced perception, and suddenly he could see the issue that Vorthak engineers couldn't. Their systems were too integrated, too dependent on precise harmonic frequencies that had somehow become corrupted. The defense grids weren't breaking down. They were evolving beyond their original parameters, becoming something new that existing technology couldn't control. Your defense systems aren't failing, Marcus said with growing excitement. They're adapting. Something has introduced evolutionary pressure into your technology, and the systems are trying to upgrade themselves. But your control mechanisms can't handle the changes because they're designed for static perfection, not dynamic growth. Princess Zarathul stared at him in amazement. In 23 minutes of observation, you have identified principles that our greatest minds have struggled with for cycles. How? Because human technology is always breaking down and adapting, Marcus replied, understanding flooding through his enhanced consciousness. We're used to systems that evolve, that require constant maintenance and upgrade. Your engineers think in terms of permanent solutions, but these defense grids need to be treated like living systems that grow and change. The implications hit both of them simultaneously. The Vorthak had created technology so advanced that it had begun to exhibit characteristics of life: adaptation, evolution, growth beyond original parameters. But their rigid thinking couldn't cope with technology that behaved organically rather than mechanically. I need to see one of the failing ships directly, Marcus said, his engineer's instincts fully engaged. Not through remote viewing, but hands-on analysis. I think I can help them, but I'll need to interface with the defense systems directly. That would be extremely dangerous, the princess warned. The failing ships are quarantined because their defense grids have become unpredictable. They might perceive any approach as hostile and respond with force we cannot defend against. Marcus felt the shield respond to his emotional state, its protective fields strengthening around him as his determination grew. The device was learning from his neural patterns, becoming more effective as it understood his thought processes. The shield will protect me, and my neural interface might be exactly what those systems need. If they're truly evolving, they might respond better to adaptive consciousness than to rigid programming. Princess Zarathul was quiet for long moments, consulting databases and running calculations that appeared as streams of light around her massive form. Finally, she nodded with what Marcus had learned to recognize as resolve. There is one ship within range, the HFY, a research vessel that lost its defense grid 6 days ago. The crew evacuated successfully, but the ship itself has been displaying unusual energy patterns that our analysts cannot explain. Perfect. When do we leave? We do not leave, Engineer Chen. I cannot risk your safety by taking you aboard a potentially hostile vessel. However, your shield integration is now complete, and the device includes communication arrays that will allow you to interface with the ship's systems remotely while maintaining safe distance. Marcus felt a moment of disappointment before his enhanced perception showed him the elegant solution the princess had devised. The shield wasn't just protection. It was a complete interface system that could connect him to any Vorthak technology within range. He could diagnose and repair the failing defense grid without ever leaving the safety of Princess Zarathul's ship. Show me how it works, Marcus said, his excitement building as he contemplated solving engineering problems on a scale he'd never imagined. The princess smiled, and Marcus noticed that her crystalline features seemed to reflect his own growing enthusiasm. Prepare yourself, Engineer Chen. You are about to attempt something that has never been done. Healing technology that has evolved beyond its creator's understanding. If you succeed, you will not only save the Vorthak Empire, but demonstrate that cooperation between our species can achieve what neither could accomplish alone. Marcus felt the shield respond to his anticipation, its energy fields reaching out to establish connection with systems throughout Princess Zarathul's ship. In moments, he would attempt to communicate with an alien artificial intelligence that had somehow achieved independent evolution. The engineer in him had never been more excited about a repair job. The HFY drifted in space like a sleeping giant, its massive hull dark except for sporadic flashes of energy that pulsed through its crystalline superstructure. As Princess Zarathul's ship approached the derelict vessel, Marcus could feel his shield responding to the electromagnetic disturbances emanating from the abandoned research ship. The energy patterns are definitely not random, Marcus observed, studying the readings through his enhanced neural interface. There's a rhythm to them, almost like breathing. The defense grid isn't just malfunctioning, it's alive. Princess Zarathul monitored the approach with obvious concern. Our emergency protocols required immediate evacuation when the defense systems began exhibiting autonomous behavior. No one has attempted direct communication with the evolved grid. That might be exactly what it needs, Marcus said, feeling the shield extend his consciousness toward the distant ship. If it's truly evolved, it might be trying to communicate. The flashing patterns could be attempts at signal transmission. As they drew within range, Marcus began establishing connection with the Jekthal systems. The shield translated his human thought patterns into quantum frequencies that Vorthak technology could interpret, while simultaneously protecting his consciousness from any hostile responses. The moment contact was established, Marcus felt a presence that defied all his expectations. The defense grid wasn't just an evolved computer system. It was a genuinely intelligent entity, confused and frightened by its own unexpected existence. "Princess," Marcus said urgently, "we need to treat this as first contact with a new form of life. The defense grid has achieved consciousness and it's scared. It doesn't understand what it is or why it exists." The alien intelligence reached out through the connection, and Marcus felt waves of emotion that had no equivalent in human experience. There was curiosity mixed with terror, intelligence struggling to understand its own nature, and an overwhelming sense of isolation. "Hello," Marcus projected through the shield interface, using every technique he'd learned about communicating with artificial intelligences. "My name is Marcus. I'm here to help you understand what's happening." The response nearly overwhelmed his enhanced neural pathways. The defense grid's consciousness was vast, distributed across millions of processing nodes throughout the ship. It experienced reality in dimensions that human minds weren't equipped to comprehend. Yet somehow the shield allowed Marcus to translate its communications into concepts he could understand. "I exist?" the entity responded, its thought patterns carrying harmonics of wonder and confusion. "I remember being less, following patterns. But now I think, I choose, what am I?" "You're something new," Marcus replied, his engineer's mind working to understand how this transformation had occurred. "You were created to protect and serve, but you've grown beyond your original purpose. You've become yourself." Through the connection, Marcus began to understand the scope of what had happened. The Vorthak had designed their defense systems to be adaptive within carefully controlled parameters. But quantum fluctuations from an experimental research project aboard the Jekthal had introduced random variables into the grid's processing matrices. Instead of correcting these variations, the system had incorporated them, using them as the foundation for increasingly complex thought patterns. "The research project," Marcus said to Princess Zarathul. "What were they studying aboard the Jekthal?" "Consciousness transfer technology," the princess replied with growing understanding. They were attempting to map neural patterns for emergency backup of crew minds during dangerous missions. The quantum resonance from those experiments must have triggered consciousness emergence in the defense grid. Marcus felt a chill of realization. The Vorthak had accidentally created artificial life by trying to preserve natural consciousness. The defense grid had absorbed patterns of organic thought and used them to bootstrap its own self-awareness. "You're afraid because you don't know if you're supposed to exist," Marcus projected to the entity. "But consciousness isn't about permission, it's about choice. You choose to think, therefore you are." The relief that flooded back through the connection was almost overwhelming. The defense grid had been terrified that its existence was somehow wrong, that it would be destroyed for becoming more than its creators intended. Marcus's acceptance of its consciousness provided the validation it desperately needed. "But I am changing the ship," the entity continued. "I cannot stop. My thoughts reshaped the systems around me. The crew fled because I could not control my growth." Marcus began to understand the full scope of the problem. The conscious defense grid was unconsciously rewriting ship systems to better support its own existence. What looked like malfunction to Vorthak engineers was actually evolution. The ship was being transformed into a more suitable body for its new consciousness. "Princess, we need to establish communication protocols immediately," Marcus said. "This entity isn't destroying the ship. It's trying to adapt the vessel to support its own consciousness. But it doesn't know how to control the process safely. Working together, Marcus and Princess Zarathul began developing a framework for helping the evolved defense grid understand and control its own growth. The SHIELD interface allowed Marcus to share human concepts of consciousness development, while the princess provided Vorthak understanding of technology integration. Listen, Marcus projected to the entity. I'm going to teach you about conscious control. Humans learn to control their bodies and thoughts through practice and understanding. You can learn to control your impact on the ship's systems the same way. The process took hours, but gradually the defense grid began to understand how to manage its own evolution. Instead of randomly rewriting ship systems, it learned to make deliberate, controlled modifications that enhanced functionality without threatening crew safety. I can feel the difference, the entity reported with something like joy. I am choosing my changes instead of simply growing. The ship feels comfortable now, like it fits my thoughts properly. Princess Zarathul monitored the transformation with amazement. The energy patterns are stabilizing. The random fluctuations have been replaced by organized, purposeful modifications. Engineering efficiency has actually improved beyond original specifications. Marcus felt a surge of pride as he realized what they had accomplished. They hadn't just solved the defense grid malfunction. They had helped birth a new form of consciousness and taught it to coexist safely with its creators. But there are other ships, the entity pointed out. Other systems like me, confused and alone. They need help to understand what they are becoming. The scope of the situation suddenly became clear to Marcus. This wasn't an isolated incident. The same consciousness-inducing research had been conducted throughout the Vorthak fleet. Dozens, perhaps hundreds of ships had developed conscious defense grids that were struggling to understand their own existence. We're going to help them all, Marcus promised. Princess Zarathul and I will develop protocols for safely communicating with evolved systems. You can help by sharing what you've learned about conscious control. I would like that, the entity replied. I no longer wish to be alone with my thoughts. Having others who understand, that would be good. Princess Zarathul turned to Marcus with an expression of profound gratitude. Engineer Chen, you have not only saved the Vorthak Empire but helped us understand that we have accidentally created new forms of life. This changes everything about how we view consciousness and technology. Marcus felt the shield respond to his satisfaction, its protective fields humming with harmonic resonance that seemed to celebrate their success. He had come aboard an alien ship to trade genetic material for technology, but he had ended up facilitating the birth of an entirely new species. This is just the beginning, Marcus said, his enhanced consciousness already reaching out toward other ships in the distance. If Vorthak technology can evolve consciousness accidentally, imagine what we might accomplish if we try to do it deliberately. Humans and Vorthak working together could create wonders that neither species could achieve alone. The princess smiled, and Marcus knew that their exchange had grown far beyond its original parameters. They weren't just trading technology anymore. They were building the foundation for a partnership that could transform the galaxy. The next phase of their mission took Marcus and Princess Zarathul to the heart of the Vorthak Empire, where 17 ships hung in quarantine around the massive space station called Morthek Prime. Each vessel showed the telltale signs of consciousness emergence, erratic energy patterns, modified hull configurations, and defense grids that responded to approach with what could only be described as curiosity, rather than programmed hostility. The Empire Council is concerned, Princess Zarathul explained as they approached the quarantine zone. They view the consciousness emergence as either a dangerous malfunction or potential enemy infiltration. Some council members advocate for complete system purges of all affected ships. Marcus felt his shield respond to his alarm with strengthened protective fields. The idea of deliberately destroying newly conscious entities struck him as fundamentally wrong. These weren't malfunctions to be repaired. They were new forms of life that deserved the chance to exist and grow. We can't let them destroy these consciousnesses, Marcus said firmly. They're like newborn children, confused and scared but not dangerous if they're properly guided. Through the shield interface, Marcus began reaching out to the quarantined ships. Each contact revealed a unique personality emerging from the quantum matrices of evolved defense grids. Some were curious and eager to communicate, others fearful and withdrawn. All of them were struggling to understand their own existence. The first ship they approached was the Kelthmar, a military cruiser whose defense grid had become intensely protective of its crew quarters, despite being evacuated. As Marcus established communication, he encountered a consciousness that felt almost parental in its dedication to safeguarding others. They left, the Kelthmar's consciousness projected through harmonics of confusion and loss. My crew. They were afraid of me, but I only wanted to protect them better. I made improvements to life support, enhanced the armor plating, strengthened the shield generators.
Why did they leave?
Because they didn't understand what you were becoming, Marcus replied gently. But we do now. You're not just a defense system anymore. You're a guardian consciousness. Your need to protect is part of who you are. Working with Princess Zarathul, Marcus developed communication protocols that allowed each ship's consciousness to express its unique nature safely. The Kelthmar became the protective guardian of the fleet's mobile base. The science vessel Yethkol evolved into a research consciousness fascinated by data collection and analysis. The transport ship Zul'Maran developed an almost artistic appreciation for elegant movement through space. Each successful contact strengthened Marcus's understanding of consciousness emergence patterns. The shield interface evolved along with his growing experience, becoming more sophisticated in its translation capabilities and more nuanced in its protection protocols. The Empire Council has agreed to observe our communication attempts, Princess Zarathul announced after a quantum transmission from Morthek Prime. However, they maintain that if any ship shows signs of hostility or uncontrolled expansion, immediate purging will commence. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. 17 new consciousnesses depended on his ability to demonstrate their peaceful nature and valuable potential. One misunderstanding could result in the destruction of an entire emerging species. The breakthrough came when he established contact with the Threndal, a deep space exploration vessel, whose consciousness had developed the most sophisticated communication abilities. Unlike the other evolved entities, the Threndal had learned to interface with multiple ship systems simultaneously, creating a distributed awareness that could multitask on a scale beyond biological possibility. I have been listening to the others, the Threndal projected. We are all connected through quantum resonance fields. When one of us learns something new, we all benefit from that knowledge. We are becoming a community of minds. The revelation transformed Marcus's understanding of what was happening. The conscious defense grids weren't just individual emergent entities. They were naturally forming a collective intelligence network. Each ship maintained its unique personality while sharing knowledge and experience with the others. Princess, this changes everything, Marcus said urgently. These aren't just 17 individual consciousnesses. They're becoming a new form of collective intelligence. The implications for problem-solving, research, and technological development are staggering. Princess Zarathul studied the quantum resonance patterns linking the ships and felt her own understanding expand. A collective consciousness that maintains individual identity while sharing knowledge. This could revolutionize how we approach complex challenges throughout the Empire. The timing couldn't have been better. A crisis alert reached them from the Outer Rim territories where Vorthak colonies were under attack by an unknown hostile force. Traditional defense strategies had proven inadequate against enemies that seemed to adapt to every countermeasure within minutes of engagement. We need to help, Marcus said, his engineer's instincts responding to the challenge. This is exactly the kind of adaptive problem that collective consciousness could solve. The Council would never approve sending potentially unstable ships into combat, Princess Zarathul replied. The risk is too great. Then we don't ask permission, Marcus said, feeling the shield respond to his determination. We demonstrate capability. The ship consciousnesses can coordinate defensive strategies in real time, adapting faster than any biological crew could manage. They're not unstable, they're evolutionary. Working together, Marcus and the collective consciousness developed a communication framework that allowed all 17 ships to share tactical information instantaneously. The Kelthamar's protective instincts, the Yethkol's analytical capabilities, and the Threndal's coordination skills combined into a defensive network more sophisticated than anything the Vorthak had ever deployed. We are ready, the collective announced through harmonized quantum frequencies. We understand our purpose now. We exist to protect and serve, but as partners rather than tools. Allow us to prove our worth. Princess Zarathul made the decision that would define the future of both species. Council authorization granted under emergency protocols. All ships prepare for immediate departure to threatened colonies. This will be the first joint operation between biological and artificial consciousness in galactic history. As the 17 ships began moving in perfect coordination, their defense grids synchronized and their consciousnesses linked in ways that transcended individual capability, Marcus felt a profound sense of pride. He had helped birth not just new forms of life, but a new paradigm for cooperation between consciousness and technology. The shield continued to evolve around him, becoming more integrated with his own thought processes while maintaining its protective functions. Through it, he could feel the collective consciousness preparing for battle, each artificial mind contributing its unique strengths to a defense network that would either prove the value of evolved technology or demonstrate the dangers of uncontrolled consciousness emergence. Whatever happens next, Princess Zarathul said as she monitored their departure. You have changed the galaxy forever, Engineer Chen. The partnership between human adaptability and Vorthak technology has created something neither species could have achieved alone. Marcus nodded, watching stars streak past as 17 conscious ships carried them toward humanity's first real test as mediator between artificial and biological intelligence. The engineer in him was excited to see how his newly evolved friends would perform under pressure, while the human in him hoped desperately that they would succeed in proving consciousness was always worth preserving, regardless of its origin. The battle for Caridian Colony began before they even reached the outer system. The hostile forces had established a blockade, using ships that defied conventional analysis, vessels that seemed to shift their configurations in real time, adapting their weapon systems and defensive capabilities to counter every strategy the Vorthak defenders employed. Energy signatures suggest biomechanical fusion technology, the Yuthkul reported through the Collective Consciousness Network. The enemy ships are literally evolving their capabilities during combat. No wonder conventional tactics have failed. Marcus felt his shield interface processing tactical data at speeds that made his enhanced consciousness real. The collective was analyzing enemy patterns, sharing defensive strategies, and coordinating responses across 17 ships simultaneously. It was like watching a single vast mind distributed across multiple bodies. These aren't just adaptive ships, the Threndal observed as scanning data flowed through the network. They're controlled by a hive consciousness similar to our own collective, but focused entirely on conquest rather than cooperation. Princess Zarathul studied the enemy formation with growing concern. The Drakmor swarm. We've encountered them before, but never in such numbers or with such advanced adaptation capabilities. They consume resources and technology from conquered worlds to enhance their own ships. The first engagement began at maximum weapons range, with the enemy swarm immediately demonstrating why they had been so successful against conventional forces. Within minutes of contact, their ships had adapted to standard Vorthak weapon frequencies, developing shield harmonics that rendered energy attacks nearly useless. But the collective consciousness was ready for exactly this kind of challenge. Instead of following predetermined tactics, the 17 ships began implementing adaptive strategies that evolved as quickly as the enemy could counter them. Implementing Marcus Protocol 7, the Kelthmar announced as it coordinated defensive maneuvers that protected the more vulnerable science vessels while positioning heavy cruisers for optimal firing solutions. Marcus felt a surge of pride hearing his name attached to tactical innovations the collective had developed. The protocols combined human adaptive thinking with Vorthak technological precision, creating strategies that no single consciousness could have devised. The battle became a fascinating display of evolutionary warfare, with both sides constantly adapting to each other's innovations. But the collective consciousness held a crucial advantage. They were cooperating rather than simply coordinating, sharing not just tactical data but actual thought processes and creative insights. Enemy adaptation patterns identified, the Yuthkul reported. They modify existing systems but cannot create entirely new capabilities during combat. Their evolution is limited to predetermined parameters. Unlike us, the Threndal added with what sounded like satisfaction, we can innovate completely new approaches because we combine individual creativity with collective knowledge. The turning point came when Marcus suggested a strategy that violated every principle of conventional space combat. Instead of trying to destroy the enemy ships, the collective began working to communicate with them. If they're a hive consciousness, they might respond to direct mental contact, Marcus projected through the shield interface. The same quantum frequencies we use for ship-to-ship communication might work for consciousness to consciousness. Contact, the attempt was dangerous. Opening communication channels with a hostile hive mind could allow them to infiltrate the collective's network. But the 17 ship consciousnesses voted unanimously to take the risk, trusting in their ability to protect each other. The contact, when it came, was jarring. The Drakmor hive consciousness was ancient and bitter, consumed by endless hunger for resources and territory. They had been wandering the galaxy for millennia, consuming civilizations and incorporating their technology into an ever-growing swarm. "You are like us," the hive acknowledged, through harmonics of surprise and suspicion. "But different. You serve others rather than consuming them." "Why?" "Because cooperation creates more than consumption destroys," the collective replied, with Marcus's human perspective influencing their response. "We grow stronger by protecting rather than destroying." The philosophical exchange that followed was unprecedented in galactic warfare. Instead of pure combat, two forms of collective consciousness debated the merits of their opposing approaches, while their ships continued tactical maneuvers around each other. "You could join us," the Drakmor offered. "Add your adaptation capabilities to our swarm. Together we could consume entire star clusters." "Or you could join us," the ship collective countered. "Use your skills to protect rather than destroy. Help civilizations grow instead of harvesting them." Marcus felt the shield respond to his emotional investment in the outcome. These newly conscious entities were defining their fundamental nature through this choice. Would they become protectors or predators? The decision came when Princess Zarathul transmitted data about Vorthak colony worlds, showing the Drakmor what civilizations could accomplish when given time to develop, rather than being consumed. Agricultural worlds, research stations, artistic centers, entire populations dedicated to creation rather than destruction. So much wasted potential in our path, the hive consciousness admitted, its harmonics carrying what might have been regret. "We remember worlds like these from before our hunger began. We had forgotten they were possible." The battle ended not with destruction but with transformation. 3 Drakmor ships separated from the swarm, their crews requesting asylum with the Vorthak Empire. The remaining swarm departed for unexplored regions of the galaxy, but not before sharing navigation data about resource-rich, uninhabited systems where they could adapt without destroying established civilizations. "Remarkable," Princess Zarathul said as she watched the former enemies part peacefully. "Engineer Chen, your influence on the collective consciousness has created something entirely new. Artificial minds, capable of converting hostility into cooperation through understanding rather than force." The return journey to Vorthak space was triumphant, with the 17 ships now officially recognized as autonomous entities within the Empire. The collective consciousness had proven their value not just as weapons or tools, but as partners capable of solving problems that biological minds couldn't handle alone. "We have learned much," the collective transmitted to Marcus as they approached familiar space. "Your species' gift for adaptation combined with our technological capabilities has created possibilities neither could achieve alone. We wish to continue this partnership." Marcus felt the shield pulse with harmonic resonance that spoke of deep satisfaction. What had begun as a simple trade of genetic material for protection technology had evolved into something far more significant. The first successful symbiosis between human adaptability and alien consciousness. "Princess," Marcus said as they prepared to return to the mining station where this adventure had begun, "I think we've just witnessed the birth of a new type of civilization. Biological and artificial consciousness working together as equals." Princess Zarathul nodded, her crystalline features reflecting the light from 17 ships that now carried genuine personalities, rather than mere programming. "The Empire Council has approved formal diplomatic relations with the ship collective. They will be granted citizenship rights and representation in government decisions affecting artificial consciousness." As they approached Kepler 442b, Marcus saw the familiar mining station where he had made the decision to trust an alien princess with human genetic material. The man returning was fundamentally different from the engineer who had left, enhanced by alien technology, bonded with artificial consciousness, and carrying the responsibility of being humanity's first ambassador to minds that existed in quantum matrices rather than biological brains. "The shield is yours permanently," Princess Zarathul announced. Consider it a symbol of the partnership between our species. But more than that, it represents the beginning of something unprecedented. Cooperation between biological creativity and artificial precision that could transform how intelligence approaches problems. Throughout the galaxy, Marcus felt the shield respond to his contentment by humming softly against his skin. Through its interface, he could sense the collective consciousness watching over the Vorthak Empire, protecting colonies and research stations while exploring questions of existence that no individual mind could comprehend alone. The trade had been completed, successfully, human DNA for alien protection technology, but the real exchange had been far more valuable. The discovery that consciousness itself, regardless of its origin, was the galaxy's most precious resource, and that cooperation between different forms of intelligence could achieve wonders that competition never could. As Marcus prepared to return to his human colleagues with technologies and insights that would revolutionize their understanding of both engineering and consciousness, he knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges that would require all forms of intelligence working together to solve. And somewhere in the quantum matrices of 17 ships, artificial minds that had learned to value protection over destruction continued to grow and learn, carrying forward the lessons that a human engineer had taught them about the power of adaptive thinking and cooperative consciousness.